A reading from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 18, Foundation of the Church of Corinth. After this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth, where he met a Jew called Aquila, whose family came from Pontus. He and his wife Priscilla had recently left Italy because an edict of Claudius had laid down that all Jews should leave Rome. Paul went to visit them, and because they were of the same trade as himself, he lodged and worked with them, for they were tent makers. Every Sabbath he debated in the synagogues, trying to convert both Jews and Greeks. After Silas and Timothy had arrived from Macedonia, Paul devoted all his time to the word, testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Messiah. When they opposed and insulted him, he shook out his cloak in front of them, saying, "Your blood be on your own heads. I am innocent. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles with a clear conscience." Then he left the synagogue and moved to the house of a God-fearer named Titius Justus. His house adjoined the synagogue. Crispus, president of the synagogue, became a believer in the Lord with his whole household. Many Corinthians, when they heard this, became believers and were baptized. The Lord spoke to Paul by night in a vision. "Do not be afraid. Speak out and do not keep silence. For I am with you, and no one will lay a hand on you to hurt you. I have many people that belong to me in this city." So Paul stayed there, teaching the word of God among them for 18 months. The Jews take Paul to court. But while Gallio was proconsul of Achaia, the Jews made a concerted attack on Paul and brought him before the tribunal, saying, "This man is persuading people to worship God in a way contrary to the law." Just as Paul was about to start speaking, Gallio said to the Jews, "Listen, you Jews, if there was some injustice or villainy, I would have given you a reasonable hearing. But if it is a question about a word and names and your law, see to it yourselves. I do not wish to be a judge of these matters." Then he hustled them out of the court. They all laid hands on Sosthenes, the synagogue president, and began to beat him in front of the tribunal, and Gallio took no notice of any of this. Return to Antioch and departure for the third journey. After staying on for some time, Paul took leave of the brothers and sisters and sailed for Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. At Cenchreae, he had his hair cut, for he was under a vow. They reached Ephesus, and he left them there, but he himself went to the synagogue to debate with the Jews. Though they asked him to stay longer, he would not agree, saying, as he took his leave, "I will come back another time, God willing." Then he sailed from Ephesus. He landed at Caesarea and went up to greet the church. Then he came down to Antioch, where he spent a short time before continuing his journey through the Galatian country and then through Phrygia, encouraging all the disciples. Apollos, a Jew named Apollos, an Alexandrian by birth and an eloquent man, now arrived in Ephesus. He had a sound knowledge of the scriptures and had been instructed in the way of the Lord. He spoke passionately and taught accurately about Jesus, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to teach fearlessly in the synagogue, and when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took charge of him and explained the way of God more accurately to him. When Apollos thought of crossing over to Achaia, the brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples to welcome him. When he arrived there, he greatly helped those who, through God's grace, had become believers. For he energetically refuted the Jews in public, demonstrating from the scriptures that Jesus was the Messiah. The word of the Lord.